Welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing something really cool. We're taking a fascinating look at the creative process. Specifically, how a seemingly mundane, totally everyday moment can suddenly spark a grand visual documentary. We're going to dive into a captivating entry from a photographer named Ang, published on July 10th, 2026. In this short, but honestly profound piece, we essentially get to look over an artist's shoulder as they transform a completely spontaneous random errand into a highly structured, observant, creative vision. If you've ever wondered how great documentarians literally find inspiration hiding in plain sight, well, this is an absolute masterclass in seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Section 1. The Unexpected Muse, Finding Inspiration in the Everyday.
Okay, let's dive into this. Just picture the scene for a second. Ing is casually traveling, just going about the day, running a few routine errands. There's no grand master plan, no location scouting, definitely no deliberate search for a muse. But then, bam, out of nowhere, they stumble right into these bustling, incredibly active Durian stalls. The atmosphere is loud, the smells are intense, and the energy is just palpable. This right here is the absolute genesis of street photography and documentary storytelling. It's that ability to just remain open to your environment, allowing the world to hand you a story while you're simply out running errands. And I absolutely love this quote from Ang's notes. Consider the beautiful irony here. Ang flat out admits they aren't even a personal fan of the fruit. Yet, that exact contrast serves as a huge, relatable hook for an artistic project. You know, sometimes a total lack of personal attachment to a subject actually allows a documentarian to view it with a way sharper, more objective lens. Instead of getting distracted by eating the fruit, Ang is completely captivated just watching the patrons savor it. It's not about the durian itself, it's about the intense human reaction to it.
And to be fair, we aren't just talking about any piece of fruit here. We're talking about the king of fruits. Noticing this intense, almost reverent public obsession around something with such a massive cultural footprint, especially despite Ang's own personal distaste, is exactly how great documentarians find their most compelling subjects. You don't actually have to love the subject you're documenting. You just have to be deeply fascinated by the world's relationship to it. The friction between Ang's personal preference and the public's absolute adoration creates this brilliant tension that practically begs to be photographed.
Section 2. Dynamics of Durian Season, where economics meets culture.
So, what is actually driving this massive public hype at this exact moment? We have to look at the environmental and market context that created this bustling, visually striking scene. It's a perfect storm where economics literally meets culture right there on the street corner. And this brilliantly illustrates how observing specific, concrete details elevates a story. Ang doesn't just note, oh hey, durians. No, they specifically observe popular high-demand varieties being sold like black-thorn and musang-king. Grounding an artistic vision in these real-world details, that gives a project real authenticity. These aren't just generic fruits, they're prized cultivars heavily sought after by aficionados. Just by focusing on those specific names, Ang immediately establishes a distinct sense of place and value in the narrative.
Now, what's really interesting about this exact moment, and what created such a crazy spectacle for Ang, is just a basic economic reality. We're looking at a peak season oversupply, resulting in a massive price drop. It's simple supply and demand, right? But visually, it translates into absolute chaos and excitement. These two economic realities directly combine to attract those massive crowds of patrons packing the stalls. It's the sheer staggering volume of the fruit mixed with a sudden affordability that creates the frenzy, which provides the ultimate dynamic canvas for a photographer.
Section 3. Documenting the life cycle, structuring a visual narrative.
This brings us to the true anatomy of an idea. Standing there, observing the crowds in the stalls, Ang doesn't just think, oh, I should snap a quick picture. Instead, they develop a highly structured creative vision right there at the market. They start thinking in terms of a comprehensive documentary series. Notice how methodical this is. Ang envisions a full life cycle. Think about each of these phases as a distinct, weighty visual chapter in a much broader story. First, you have the quiet, natural process of growth in the orchards. Then the intense physical labor of harvesting. Next comes the logistics, transporting these giant spiky fruits across regions. That's followed by the vibrant, chaotic energy of selling at the street stalls. And finally, the deeply personal, totally satisfying moment of consumption. Ang is quite literally mapping out the entire journey from dirt to dining.
So, the crucial point here is that Ang intends to elevate a simple, fleeting street observation into a comprehensive, structured visual story. A quick snapshot of a durian stall, that's just a picture for a social media feed. But a documented series tracking the transition of the fruit? Well, as Ang writes, that makes for a compelling visual narrative. It's a true testament to the fact that structure and clear intent are exactly what turn raw observation into real art.
Section 4. Capturing the human element, the emotional core.
Let's move to see how this builds into the emotional core of the project. Because let's be honest, a story about just a piece of fruit, no matter how detailed that life cycle is, can feel a bit hollow. Aang wisely realizes the story isn't actually complete without the people interacting with it. Aang plans to contrast two totally distinct human elements. On one side, we have the seller. Capturing the durian in the hands of the vendor highlights the grit, the hard work, the commerce, and the entire livelihood built around this season. On the other side, we have the patrons, the people exhibiting sheer joy and indulgence as they savor the fresh fruit. By capturing both the intense labor of the seller and the sweet reward of the patron, Aang provides that essential human element that completes this entire narrative arc. It completely grounds the agricultural and economic facts in raw human emotion.
And I just love this final detail from Aang's notes. What is the actual technological catalyst making this ambitious future exploration possible? A recently found upgraded mobile camera. It's such a fun, relatable little detail. You don't always need a massive film crew or $30,000 worth of lenses to document the world around you. Modern storytelling relies so heavily on accessible tech. That camera, sitting right in Aang's pocket, is all it takes to trigger the inspiration for a massive, multi-stage documentary project.
Which ultimately brings us to you. Aang looked at a noisy fruit stand during a grocery run and saw a multi-part, culturally significant visual narrative. So I want to leave you with this. What ordinary, completely overlooked events happening in your own life right now could be the subject of your next big visual project? Whether you have a notepad, a sketchbook, or just your upgraded mobile phone camera, I challenge you to apply this documentarian mindset to your own neighborhood. Look closer, find the structure, and capture the human element. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.